everyone. My name is T, and I'm on the Vancouver Startup Week team. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered on Indigenous land, regardless of where you are joining us from. I'm grateful to be on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. I am privileged to live, work, and play on these lands. First, I'd like to thank you for joining us for VSW 2021, and welcome to the Founders Panel hosted by Valhalla Private Capital. This session is also part of the VSW Founder Track and is proudly supported by Sage Accounting. Sage knows you didn't start your business to become an accountant. Sorry to any accountants out there. So Sage Accounting keeps your business organized and running smoothly, track your cash flow, send out invoices, and get paid quickly. So you can visit the Sage Accounting booth to access free guides, templates, and start starting your business finances the right way. Plus get an exclusive VSW discount if you're ready to switch from Excel. I would also like to thank Valhalla Private Capital for being our event partner and also our sponsor. VSW could not happen without the continuous support from our community sponsors. And during the session, if you have any questions for our speakers, please post them on the Q&A on the Whova session. You can also upvote questions posted by other attendees. But for now, I'll pass the mic over to Camille and we'll begin.
Hi everyone, welcome to VSW, and we're just so excited to have you as part of our panel. My name is Camille Hunt. I'm the chapter president of the Vancouver chapter at Valhalla, and we also have Grant Lawrence, who's our chapter president in Kelowna as well. So welcome so much. Yeah, as T mentioned, we have a Q&A at the bottom. So if you just scroll down to the bottom of the page, you should see a Q&A. So if you have any questions for any of our founders or any of us, please feel free to write any of those questions in the chat. We'd be more than happy to answer them as we go on. And as you might have noticed, you might have seen some questions come up when you entered into this event. So there'll be 3 questions, which is just polling our members just to understand really who we're speaking to. So if you could fill out those questions as well in the poll. So the 3 questions: 1, are you a first-time founder? 2, have you raised capital for this venture that you're working for before? And 3, would you like more information on Basecamps or Valhalla Private Capital? That would be great. So we'll kick it off, and maybe Grant, we can start with maybe just a little introduction about who we are and what we do. So because I'm sure that there are people who aren't sure what Valhalla Private Capital is all about.
Certainly. So welcome, everybody. Thank you to all the panelists and to everybody doing the volunteer work behind the scenes at Vancouver Startup Week. So that's great to be able to do this. The Valhalla Private Capital is an organization started in 2003. We've got multiple different arms to it. So really quickly, we do have an angel group that meets monthly to see companies pitch for raising capital. That's across our 6 chapters in Western Canada. So one of the most active angel groups in Canada, always ranking 1, 2, or 3 for the number of deals done, as well as the amount of money invested into companies. And we've got an arm that does training and education, and that's typically delivered 2 ways, either through coordination with incubators, accelerators, universities, and colleges, as well as the latest one is being with the World Bank for some international stuff that we're doing. And we also provide this as part of our investment summit. We've got another one coming up in the fall. We just finished one as assisting the one in Edmonton, Calgary, and Saskatchewan. So those might be good ones to take a look at as they come out. So if you'd like to join our newsletter later, we can provide that information as well. And we also have the ability to offer with our sister funds some financing through our venture fund, as well as our shred fund. So there is a little bit more to Valhalla than just an angel group, and then there's an M&A part to our group as well. So we're a little bit broader than just angels here. But we'd love to share with you today some of the experience that these great founders have had during their journey, and they're still on their journey. They're making their way towards an exit at some time in the future, and love to share with you what they're going through. Camille, anything else you'd like to add?
No, so I think we should just kick it off and introduce our founders that we have, because that's what everyone's here to hear it from. So what I'll do is I'll just go around and I'll introduce all the founders quickly, and then we'll go through individually, and maybe you can do a quick two sentence introduction about who your company is and what you do. So I'll start with the top left for my screen, which is Jeff McCann. He is the founder and CEO of Apollo Insurance based out in Vancouver. So Jeff, if you want to give us a 2-sentence introduction on who you are and what you do.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity and great to be with these panelists. Apollo is an online insurance provider, and so we have the largest selection of online insurance for both small businesses and individuals in the Canadian market. So if you're looking for insurance, you can buy from us in about 5 minutes, totally online.
Awesome. And we also have Jessica from Memory Keeper. She is the founder and CEO of Memory Keeper based out in Regina.
Thank you. I'm also very excited to be here. I wish I was having the Vancouver weather. Our Memory Keeper is an evolution on a modern day photo album. We're a private space to collaborate, design, collect, and protect all the pieces of your story. We're really solving the problem of 1.4 trillion pieces of media being captured this year, and less than 1% of that being stored with any sort of context whatsoever, let alone protected.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Next up, we have Arpan from Renaissance. He is the founder and CEO of Renaissance based in Vancouver. Arpan?
Hey, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Arpan, founder and CEO of Renaissance. We're a fan engagement mobile app in the music space that helps music labels and artists amplify the early traction needed to land on some of the popular playlists and tap into a community of their super fans.
Great. I'm loving how snappy these pictures are. That's awesome. And we have Melissa and Mike, who are tag teaming from Live It Earth, and they are in the goodies. So Mike and Melissa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Irvin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Live It. And Live It Earth delivers mind-blowing online programs for kids about the natural world. And our programs include STEAM education, are available in French and English, and include Indigenous worldviews.
Everybody, my name is Melissa Welsh. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer at Live It. Mike took care of the rest.
Very good. Camille, I'll just jump into the questions. So what we're going to do is a round robin of questions. At what stage are you at in your company? So market fit, scaling, you're still working on the MVP. And how long did it take to get you there? So I'll do the reverse order. So Melissa and Mike, however you want to tag team this, I'll pass it over to Live It first.
Okay. So really for us, we're 4 years old as of this past April. COVID definitely accelerated our product market fit. And it's really forced us to make a lot of changes overnight. And Mel, I'm sure, can add a little bit more to that as well.
Yeah, I think we basically COVID forced us from MVP into product market fit. And that's really what we've been testing in the last year. And now we're envisioning scaling and preparing the company right now, basically putting processes and that sort of thing in place to kind of, move forward.
Thank you. And Arpan, yourself, where are you at?
Yeah, so for us, there's two sides, right? There's the users and then there's the music labels, which act as our customers. On the user side, we feel like we found product market fit. We actually did, Superhuman has a pretty famous survey they do, where 40% of your users say that they're extremely disappointed you found it. And when we did that, we hit a 43 and 42% a few times we've done it. So we definitely have on the user side, and we're growing pretty organically month over month. On the label side, definitely still in the earlier stages. As we talk to labels, each label wants a different thing. So that's still kind of, a little earlier than the user side, but we're pretty close.
Sorry, Arpan, for the 43%, you're saying that if you pull the product away, there'd be that many people would be upset.
Yeah, basically there's three categories. I think they wouldn't be disappointed at all. They'd be somewhat disappointed, and they'd be extremely disappointed. And they have a pretty, if you Google Superhuman product market fit survey, you'll see how they ran it. And we did the same thing, and just polling your users. And if more than 40% said they'd be extremely disappointed without your product, it means you found product market fit. And it was a pretty good way for us to test if our users were enjoying the product.
Oh, very good. Very good. Jessica, what stage are you at?
Yeah, so we started development about a year ago now, last April, May. And truthfully, only because COVID hit one of our peers in the accelerator we had just been accepted to, and they were hit and needed to keep their developers employed. So we started in April last year, end of April, and we hit some industry partners for MVP testing in October. So we really are at the product market fit stage. We're fairly early, but we are trying to make some really intentional decisions to scale quickly as well, because we have a B2B and a B2C offering.
Great. And Jeff?
Oh,
sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
I was just going to say, one of the elements of our product is that you can invite other people to contribute, and that's actually where we see we're getting the most scale. Again, it's just people getting invited to contribute as a guest, and then it's growing our market a lot faster. So when we get popular people creating a project, it seems like our user base grows pretty quickly. So that's good.
Oh, so collaboration is a key for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And Jeff, where are you at?
Yeah, that's really cool network effects that you talked about there, with having sort of the users at each other. That's really neat. So Apollo is about 3 years old. We launched a platform in April of 2019. And so we're very much in the scale phase right now. We closed a 13.5 million Series A in December. And so we're sort of deploying that capital and very much, rocking and rolling on the scale side. So it's been a fun adventure. Definitely took us about a year. I'm not a software developer, so being a non-coding founder of a tech company, we had to sort of go out and find people that were willing to take the bet and quit their jobs. So it took us a little bit longer in the early days, licensing contracts, but then once we got out to market, it was pretty aggressive from there.
All right, on. And that's a good lead into, pulling your team together. What changes did you make along the way? The good ones, the mistakes, if you're willing to be frank about it, help the audience learn a little bit about what your journey was for building out the team. That'd be great.
Yeah, we're about 55 now. And so, we've onboarded probably 40 something people in COVID remotely. And so the benefit is that we've been able to access talent from across the country and really open it up, be remote first. The downside is sort of building that culture. And I think the earliest employees, we started this in the living room of a house. And so we've got 2 teammates that are with us now, really the founding team. Like, they had to ring the doorbell and come to work in the living room, and to convince someone that's where you go is pretty hard to do early days. And then I think we made some mistakes early on. What's the skill sets we really need full time? You got to be very versatile in that early team. And so I think looking at people that come from big corporate, how do you find versatility? I think we found some amazing people throughout that. We've got a really strong team, but not everyone was a fit for the speed, the versatility, and fitting the values of really wanting to get after it.
So when you were doing that, did you find you asked different questions? We just learned that this person may not be a perfect fit, or they weren't adaptable. So did you change the process?
Yeah, I think early days, the process was very much, hey, you meet someone for coffee, like, would you please come and work with us? And, as you mature that as a business, as a brand, building out our people and culture function now, our recruiting, our interview process, our onboarding is so much more strong than it was in the early days, when it was kind of us half convincing who's willing to make that jump, and also really trying to find great people that fit the vision and have the talent to help us build a company.
Right.
Jeff, I'd be curious, and just as a follow-up before we move on, is at what point did all of that change? Was there a milestone, or was there a point in time where you realized, okay, we're going to have to move from, say, like generalists who, we can meet over for coffee and ask them to join, versus, hiring someone for a specific skill set?
I think the 10-person mark is an interesting landmark. When you have 10 people, it's almost like kids soccer. Everyone kind of runs around and solves problems together, and you can be very collaborative, very tight as a group. But as soon as you break past that, well, now you have to set up teams, and then you're really looking for specific people to solve a skill deficit, bringing in diversity of thought into the team. All right, we need someone with this particular skill set. Whereas in the early days, you just kind of need people that are willing to wear 10 hats. Have all of the jobs, and then they say, well, you know what, there's this hat I don't want. Can we please bring in accounting, so that we're not all kind of doing accounting, to the joke earlier, finding those specific skill sets. I'd say the 10-person mark was probably where that crossover happened.
Very good. Jessica, how about a little bit on your experience thus far?
Yeah, well, not similar. Your growth is incredible, Jeff. But I started off really intentionally trying to hire other entrepreneurs. recognizing that I needed opinions and I needed thoughts and I needed people with great ideas. And so that started first with my CTO, who was part-time. I'm a non-technical developer or founder as well. And so really being careful in that conversation. I knew I had to hire someone who was completely different than me in that role, but that's also a struggle, you know, just to be aware of your own bias and to be like, I don't want to get into the details because I'm not a details person, but you are, and that's good. So we spent a lot of time just even with that initial conversation with that CTO, again, who wasn't coming in full time right away either, to say, okay, we played out a whole bunch of scenarios to talk about what would happen with the leadership role, the equity. It's just easier to play out when you're saying what's your thought process if you don't want to come full time in a year, or rather than being in the situation and then finding out. So we actually did a lot of that up front. And I'm really grateful for it now because the conversations we've had then, some of them have come true, and we've been able to be anchored in the decisions we made early. So that's, I think, first, critically important. Second is I spent a ton of time, probably even before we knew we were going to be hiring or we were confident we had something here, volunteering with the university locally. So I coached the business teams, the entrepreneurial competitions I judged and coached. There were some entrepreneurial competitions within the developers, the startups in my accelerator, like the 24-hour startup competitions. I got really, really integrated in those so that I could find who was winning, not necessarily like I had the highest marks, but who was winning in that, worked well with the teams, worked good under pressure, and had really good ideas. And then the third thing I think I did with our first kind of group of hiring, we use a lot of students or recent grads because we can afford them. There's some good grants for them, and they're way smarter than most other people. And so also, finding that right talent, but then also paying really close attention in the interviews to who came back and said, I think we had the people that we have on the team now, with the exception of one who's not here anymore, ironically, came back with, oh, we could also do this. We could, they were dreaming about the product and how else we could use it. And that was a critical one for me. But now I would say we're getting to the point where I'm like, the thing with having a team full of entrepreneurs is it's hard to lead because we all have our own ideas, right? And so now, yeah, we're at the 7-8 mark, and I'm starting to shift to say, okay, we need some people who are actually going to bring order. Entrepreneurs, again, also, we kind of chase the bright, shiny stuff. And so we need some people to follow up behind us and keep us in order and execute and put some systems in place. And so that's the phase we're at now.
Wow.
Yeah, with exception really to one person that probably was an absolutely, a great human being, but probably not the right fit. And we listened, that was a mistake that we made by listening to someone who said, no, this person's great, who hadn't worked with them in this field. They'd worked with them in another field. And probably that early on, they were willing to come on, take a bit of a leap of faith for us, and we went for it. And it just, that emotional commitment to the product and where we were going wasn't there the same way.
Right. So big learning curve there on that one.
Yeah, and we didn't exit, or we didn't handle it as quickly as we should have. It's one of our first employees, and we let it drag, and that impacts your other employees. Right.
Good lessons learned.
Yeah.
Arpan, how about yourself in terms of your team building?
Yeah, our team came together primarily through everyone's network. We actually just hired someone today who starts in a week, and he was the first external hire that we've made, like through a posting a job or anything like that. Besides that, the others have come through our network, and we're not just hiring them because we know them. We made sure we vetted them, and software developers, we have a pretty strict process that I've ran at other companies, which is we have a questionnaire, because generally when you post, I don't know how it has been for you guys, but when we posted our software developer role a week and a half ago, there was like 400 applications in like 3 days. So there's a ton, right? And so I'm not going to interview 400 people. So we quickly send out a questionnaire. It just kind of gauges personality and their skill level. And then I'll hop on a 15-minute call with about 30 people. So just time blocks like 3 hours. And then from there, about 10 people we'll send a code test to. And it's a pretty simple code test. Should take an hour or two. And then from there, we'll interview the top 5 code tests. And that's how we came to this last version. But the whole process ends up only taking a week because we set pretty quick timelines and deadlines for it. But it's like, we'll post a job for about 3 days. The applications come in. I'll send out the questionnaire. They get 2 days. It only takes 5 minutes. And then from there, we'll do the 15-minute interviews the next day, and then the code test, and then to hire. So I think within 15 days, we just hired someone out of 400 applicants. So it ends up moving pretty quickly, but I'm a firm believer in always kind of tapping into your network, and generally someone knows someone that is probably a pretty good fit for the role.
Right. So how many people are on the team now?
So we're total 7, or total 7 as of June 1st. Yeah.
Okay. So you and Jessica are growing up to that magic number of 10 that Jeff's talked about, where you need to start to transition into team leads and specialists. Okay.
Exactly. Like right now, everyone just kind of reports into me, and we have, we don't have a CTO. So there's none of us are technical co-founders. So one of them reports into who's a product manager, like our 2 developers, or I guess 3 developers now, and designer report into the product manager, and then they report into me. But there's no real formal structure yet because we're so small.
Okay. Okay. And Melissa and Mike, what changes have you made along the way to build your team?
Definitely. Actually, I really appreciate what Jeff was mentioning too, just like that evolution and growth into what he's dealing with now. We're still within the wear multiple hats sort of thing, but how it initially started is that I was part of a nonprofit before doing underwater dive shows, and it was through friends and just passion. Anybody who was interested in diving in the marine world and wanting to share it, that's who we connected with. And then we translated that over into Live It, which became a for-profit. And yeah, I was good at getting people excited, to tell you the honest truth. And so I was able to bring some folks in, do some cool stuff, but that didn't necessarily mean that it was always the right fit, especially as we were growing. And, with MVP and testing things, you're still trying to find your way and decide on what you're solving as the pain points and things like that. We had some ideas, but things evolved pretty quickly. And especially over when COVID had hit, we were pretty happy with where we were at. This kind of took our 3-year plan, turned it into a 3-week plan, and launched, which also meant that we had to start, building up the right teammates for that. So Mel can tell you a little bit more on that side, but yeah, we had some fun. Definitely, I guess as a lesson I learned was that, in the early stages, it's good to get people excited, but you also have to measure what you're covering, what you're promising to be the vision and mission, especially as things shift and change. So, yeah.
Cool.
Mel, would you like to add a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'll add a little bit, like maybe where we're at right now today. So I think like we're definitely in a place where we're feeling a little bit of that pain. We're 7 employees, and then our team is 12 with regular contractors that work every month for us. And we just hired our first specialist, and not sure that we nailed it. But one of the pain points, like we don't know yet, the verdict's still out. But the thing is that when you're hiring a specialist, like when you recognize, okay, we need somebody that knows more about this than we do, what we're learning is that it's hard to hire that person when you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so I think where we're at right now, we're relying heavily on, we're a part of Accelerate Okanagan and their Rev Up program. And we're relying heavily on mentors right now to help us get the right people in the door and make sure we're asking the right questions in interviews. And our pen, if I said, hopefully I said your name right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I'm going to hit you up after this because I've got a job posting for a developer that I haven't posted yet. And before I do, I'm going to connect with you on that questionnaire.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Excellent. Well, I'll go to our pan for this next one. We'll just change the order. Let's describe some of the steps you took to improve your game, to raise capital, and then to manage those funds in the most impactful way. And of course, you just maybe give a little bit of your raise history as well. That'd be great.
Sure. So previously, when I started coming in previously, I didn't know anything. I did it as a university project, and I ended up doing well. I bootstrapped it. We did pretty well. But I remember when I raised funds that first time, I had no idea what to do. So I got one meeting and I walked in there with like a sheet of paper talking about the business, and they basically laughed me out of the room. So I was like, okay, I'll do this on my own. This time around, luckily I had a good mentor. And we started the process of like crafting a pitch deck first, like what's our story we want to tell. So we did that, and then we went to a few like friendlies, essentially, like the friends of friends who are investors or angel investors. And actually, Valhalla was my first public pitch in December.
Oh, was it? Oh, I didn't know that.
It was the first public one. Yeah, like we pitched kind of privately and talked, but I never pitched to a group. So it was the first private pitch. Valhalla actually helped a lot. Talked to a lot of people, learned a lot about what to pitch. But I think the most important thing for me was narrowing what our story is. And once you actually start talking to VCs and angels, you're really just saying a lot of the same story over and over and just crafting it differently based on, maybe what their fund size is or whether they actually invest in our case, music tech or not, because they'll be a little more knowledgeable than someone else. We ended up actually closing our round once we actually opened it up. It was like, once you get one, the kind of floodgates hit, and everyone decided to come in within like a 3-week time frame, which was awesome. And we closed our pre-seed round a few weeks ago. So pretty excited about that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jeff, how about a little bit of your history on what you did to change yourself to go and raise the funds? Because I'm not going to steal your thunder. Go ahead. I was going to say something, but go ahead.
I don't know if it's thunder, but we've raised about 16 million so far. And in the early days, when I wrote the original business plan, like coming out of business school, I was like, what you do is you write a 50-page like essay on all of the things you know. And then I gave that to a friend of mine at a fund, and he was like, nobody's going to read this. Like, by the way, business school doesn't prepare you for, starting a company. What you need is like 10 concise slides. So I think that was an initial transition. And then it was a lot of time just with the deck. When you really take everything you know and distill it down, simple is always better. As soon as someone doesn't understand what you're talking about, they're going to turn off. And then I think a lot of people, especially with, it's great that we have Valhalla, and I had pitched there on a couple occasions and different Startup Week initiatives. But what I really learned quickly is, one, take every single meeting anybody will give you. You will go to coffee with someone, they will say, hey, I'm going to make 2 intros. You go meet those 2 people, and then you meet the next 2 people. Just take every meeting. And then you'll start having people that are like having coffee, and they're like, yeah, I'll invest 50 grand. Cool. Like, what are you doing later today? And you're like, I didn't use my deck. I think I probably didn't use the deck for the first couple $1 million. And yet we had the deck to help refine the story, but you rarely get the kind of Dragon's Den opportunity that you might think. It's going to be over a meal. It's going to be over maybe a call. It's going to be through someone else who's already told your story for you. You have to prepare other people to give them the ammunition to sell you on your behalf. Hey, this is Jeff. He has this online insurance business. Early on, I think we overcomplicated it, but if you prepare other people in your network, to Arpan's point around use your network, you're going to get intros. But if they can't explain what you do, then you have no chance. So I think those were early on. We thought it was going to be all this formal pitching. And I think we were probably a few $1 million into it before we used the deck for the first time, because it was all coffees and network type relationship driving.
Right. And then you've gone to raise a much larger round. Can you describe that a little bit for us?
For that round, we looked at a lot of venture, and we got some term sheets. But one of the key things that no one talks about in press releases is, what were the terms? So I think everyone gets excited, and you see some company raise a bunch of money, and it's, you don't really get into those details. So we really wanted to stay away from a preferred share. I don't know if anyone in the audience sort of knows what that is. Learn what that is. And so we wanted to stay away from a preferred share. So we went with a boutique investment bank in Vancouver. We work with them. We have 2 insurance companies that are investors of ours as well. And so we sort of built around with them and brought in quite a few new investors through that process. But I think we did 47 Zoom meetings in a week. And we raised 13.5 on that. And so it was just be concise. You get 22 minutes plus Q&A, and you're on to the next meeting. So that's really the strategy we used.
Oh, very good. Listen, Mike, can you share with us a little bit about what you did to change yourself and your approach when you raised capital, and to then now, of course, managing those funds?
Definitely. One of the first places where actually Mel and I had met was at Viatech. They had an accelerator program there, and we'd learned a little bit about how to actually present our business. I know what you mean about the 50-page document, Jeff. I actually had that before. God, those are terrible. Anyways, so figure out how to distill information, how to communicate it effectively, and especially the right information. We learned through the accelerator there, and also at AO. And we've participated in 2 of the different summits now. Mel can kind of jump in and tell more, especially on where we're at right now in this initial raise that we're doing.
Yeah, so we haven't closed our first round yet. We're looking to close our first round next month. We participated in the Angel Summit through AO, and that took us for a ride. That's for sure. It was like a fire hose of information every single day. And I don't think so. Mike and I, so we bootstrapped the company. We did $500,000 in revenue this past year. The company's 4 years old. And we were like, sure, we'll go talk to some investors. Like maybe we'll need some money. And so it's funny how naive we were, because I don't think we understood. It's really easy to have those meetings and have coffees and talk to people. But one of the things that really held us up was that the company wasn't structured in a way initially to take investment easily. So it's really slowed down the process. So we've had to do a whole like reorg of our share structure and like all kinds of things, which has made the process take significantly longer than we knew. And if we had known that back in December or January, we could have gone on it then and probably have closed our round sooner. So yeah, lots of lessons there. Even if you don't think you need money, it's probably a good idea to start learning about the process. Because once you do, everybody tells you that, right? Like, don't start raising money when you need money. You need to start raising money 6 months to 12 months beforehand. So that's a thing. It is.
And how much time do you feel that is taken out of your daily activities to go do this capital raise?
Oh God, it's its own job. So, you know, when you wear multiple hats.
That's the other thing. Yeah, like people tell you that and you don't believe it. Like we're just like, okay, whatever. It's just like another task, right? It's just like another thing on the list. But I mean, I think and we're also first timers. So there was a huge learning curve for us, and we didn't have a data room ready and all that kind of thing. So between January and March, it was definitely another full-time job for both Mike and I. We were working weekends and evenings and the whole bit. But we've got it together now. I think it feels a little more, manageable now.
Excellent. Jessica, same question to you in terms of the capital raise. What do you have to do to change yourself, be prepared, and then of course go and raise the capital, and how you're managing those funds?
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of the things that have been said, but one, get your data room ready way before you think you need it. I'm just closing my very first round as well, and it's a pre-seed round. So when it starts to happen, it happens fast. So it felt like I was doing a lot of pitching. I was at the AO Angel Summit and had a great experience there. And do it before you need it, because it starts to get you ready. Some of the things I learned, do it before you need it. Get your data room ready, because if nothing else, when you're pitching and you've got your data room ready and you know the numbers and you know the details are in there, and someone asks you a question that you weren't quite ready for, you can just answer with so much more confidence to either answer it or at least know you've got the answer, as opposed to getting flustered, because it just helps get all your minds put together. I think, like, if I was giving some advice, when it starts to happen, when the first one says yes, and that was actually the Valhalla Angel Summit in Saskatchewan, and I was the winner for that. And it seemed like once one got on, then all the other people I've kind of been talking to were like, okay, we're ready right now, let's go. And so once it starts to happen, it happens fast. So get your, what together long before you think you need it. Also, I think, the first one is the first one. So it's really important. But after that, you get to be a little bit more strategic about what are they bringing to the table. Like Jeff's saying, even some of their investors now are insurance companies. You want to think about who your partners are, who your potential acquirers are, who's benefiting from your product on a large enough scale that they might be great investors for you to, start to see if you could do business together well enough that they're acquirers later. So I think that's really important. And also, one of the things I learned from probably the first couple pitches I did, where I didn't really tell my big vision, because I was like, well, it's too big and it's too crazy. And I spent, 25 years in corporate, where you tell a little bit more than you want to do, but you have to prove it. You have to show how good you are and execute before you get to, dream bigger. And then finally at one, I was like, well, actually, like, my long-term goal is to completely automate this. And I talked about that a little bit more, and it totally shifted the conversations I was having to the right space. So if you have the biggest dream, make sure you're communicating it. And then in regards to managing the money after, I will say I took the Valhalla boot camp. That really helped me just get, you know, a good foundation in advance of going through this. And I'm just working through the process of now, you know, I've raised so that I have a runway that's going to last me a little over a year. That allows me to build some foundation, some more foundation of milestones so that next time I raise, the value's higher and I'm not losing that much. But I'm just working out how do I manage that money now. So I'm looking at some short-term investments that earn me just, that are safe, obviously, but earn me about the same as what I'm paying in interest, because most of my raise was for convertible notes. So.
Right. So you did a convertible note. Jeff, you did common shares. Right?
We did a SAFE at one point. We went through that process. So SAFE kind of became very popular a few years ago. Nobody understood what it meant. So going out to investors and saying, you give me money, I give you like 1 share or 10 shares, very easy to understand. You give me money, I give you some promise for some future thing. A little bit harder to shop. And so that's something that, again, simplicity always seemed to win out, but we've done both structures, and common shares seemed way easier for people to wrap their head around.
Right. So that is part of the challenge, of course, is what's your terms and how do you explain that easily? Because of course, safes, you know, they came up from Silicon Valley. It is that gray area of, hey, well, it's not a common share, but it's not a convertible note, but I'm going to put these terms around it so it feels like a convertible note. Like, hold on, what is it? Right. And I know, Arpan, you did a safe to start with as well.
Yeah, I raised our entire round as a safe. I think Canadian VCs and angels aren't as open to it. Anyone in the US, anyone I talked to just assumed it was on a safe to start, as opposed to in Canada. I think there's a little more pushback on safes because they're more used to convertible notes here. But I raised my entire round on a safe. Once you have one of them on a safe, the rest will do it.
Yeah, the importance of a strong lead. You can, you know, like even you said that before, Jessica, where it's like as soon as you have that first one, the rest kind of fall because you can point to this smart person over here is in, but I also have a bit of their money. It's de-risked for everyone else. Nobody wants to be first through. So always starting around with a lead is totally critical, whether it's a safe or otherwise.
For sure.
Right.
And I think it probably depends where your value is for your company too, right? Where you are on the revenue track and what kind of value, how much you want to lock yourself into the valuation you give is how flexible probably some of those different notes you come at it with are.
Yeah, and you do want to step yourselves into the shoes of an investor as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'll tell you right now, I'm caught in a safe and there's no future round in sight. It's been 3 years already. Don't have any, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm stuck. Like, I don't have equity, I don't have debt, I have no say, and there's no future round. So it's never not going to be priced out. So now that makes me shy from doing another safe, right? Unless that person, our team can say, yes, we're 3 months away, here's how we're going to do it. And they may put some other conditions in there to allow for that trigger to happen. Okay, now it's priced. Okay, thank you. Because I don't have that in this.
A great exercise we did in the boot camp where it was like, okay, so here's how many imaginary dollars you have, and here's the different pitches and the different terms and the different, now you make the decision. And it's really helpful to, just wear both hats. So you go in with a value add for both sides.
Well, being able to look at that future round. So if you're raising a seed or a pre-seed, you'd have to say, well, my next valuation when I raise in 12 to 18 months is going to be twice as much or 5 times as much. Well, then you got to work backwards and say, can I create that much revenue? Can I create that many more landmarks? And a lot of people say, oh, I just want this first check. But it's like, oh, well, if you don't quite have enough money from the first round, then it's hard to then prove a higher value and a higher value to go raise more. And you end up in a tough dilution situation.
Yeah. You end up with perhaps investors not believing you. So they're going, I'm not taking his call anymore or her call anymore. Like, you've left me out to hang. You didn't tell me what was happening, or you're too aggressive to start, whatever the reason is. And that's part of, thanks for Jessica bringing up the base camp, because that's part of what we do try and do is have founders walk through the shoes as an investor and realize, oh, this is the other side of the table. Now I understand why they're asking me these questions, right?
Yeah, I was going to say the Cole's notes for this whole question is, it's complicated, and get people who know what they're doing, because it's hard. There's a lot of easy mistakes to make. So trust the advice of experts.
And we'll be covering off more of this in our Friday session called The Street Fighter's Guide to Rising Capital. A little bit of what's being covered here today. So I'm going to change the topic a little bit. Michael had a question here. I think we've covered it off. The answer is depends, Mike, on why are entrepreneurs using safes instead of convertible notes? It depends on your situation for sure. what you believe is your capital budget going down the road, how many times you're going to raise. You know, Jessica, you said you've got a good runway with your current capital raise. Jeff, I'm sure you do with your raise. You're going to raise 4 million, you raise 12 or something greater than that. So you've got a good runway. So the SAFE is really dependent on what conditions around the SAFE, who you're talking to, and if you do have that lead investor to come and say, yes, I believe in this, and I'm going to follow this through and invest via the SAFE. So I'm going to change the topic a little bit on culture. I think this is one of the things that doesn't get talked about an awful lot, and it's sort of out there. So I think I'll start off with Melissa and Mike. Because you're the only co-founders here together, and what, you know, did you, now that you're at 7 people, are you looking at what the culture should be? Are you just letting it grow, or do you have a plan for it, and what is that culture?
Well, initially, what Melissa and I had done is we spent quite a few months working on what our brand is and really kind of outlining what are our values that we really resonate with, and who are the types of people that we want to bring into the company that represent those values and are akin to them. So we started out really with that, and that has now grown, especially now that we have actually quite the production team that's working on the different content pieces and watching how each of those people have brought a certain element, you know, to the environment with everybody else. Mel, did you want to add anything else on that?
Yeah, sure. We followed, there's a book out there called A Three Hag. I think that's what it's called, A Three Hag. It's a strategic, it's a book on like basically a strategic execution. And so we had read that early on, and we're like, okay, well, let's just do exactly what the book says, because these are smart people. And so one of the things, the early things was figuring exactly what your company core values were. So our core values, like way back at the beginning, were grit, curiosity, fun, compassion, humble, and critical thought. And so even before we didn't know what we were doing in terms of HR and like still are figuring it out, we hire based on those values. And I think in the early days, like even if you know nothing else about the hiring process, having those company core values and hiring based on those in the early days, I think will attract you some good people.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I'm going to pass it over to Jeff, because I know, Jeff, I did ask you this question a long time ago about culture. So please like to hear your answer now that you've grown to 45 people.
Yeah, well, I think we're about 55, but
55, you know, sorry.
Culture has been critical. I mean, I'll echo their comments on values. You'll hear our values in conversation. You know, we have like even candor as a core value. That's why I'm so open on a call like this and dropping ego and being honest. I mean, so if you're able to actually live the values, we also had to figure out in a COVID world remotely, how do we build culture? It used to be we were the small group of people that were kind of rah, and it was exciting. But so now we do, you know, a weekly huddle, the entire company, all hands. It's a knowledge share. Everybody gets, you know, hoodies, and we've got apparel and tracksuits and all that, because now instead of what you might have spent in office, we spend that on how do we invest in people's homes. We send everyone a stand-up desk. We invest in their technology at home. You know, so all those little things I think add up to how do you engage people remotely in addition to living your values, hiring against them. I still meet, we're up to 50. I met every single person. So other people would do the technical interviews. Can they write code? I don't know. Can I check them for values? Absolutely. And so those types of screens and that type of, I think, entrenchment of our values definitely is you know, here to scale and scale with us. So I'll echo their comments without a doubt.
Excellent. Excellent. Jessica, how are you shaping the values there? Because you did a lot of work with the grad students.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we went at it a little bit different. Is that we're as we were working through our MVP, we were kind of we were defining it as we went, and intentionally so. So where we started was, I'm an old HR person, so we used Patrick Lencioni.
You got the leg up on everybody.
Yeah, well, or maybe not, I don't know. But we used Patrick Lencioni's Hungry, Humble, and Smart. And so we started with that, and we said foundationally, this is where we want to be. Like I've been in WestJet in the early days where we were just building, and I led the talent team then. So really I've seen some of the grassroots. How do you empower? How do you enable? how do you make everyone feel that way? But we didn't put names to it right away because we wanted to actually have the group come together a little bit. So we stuck with those hungry, humble, and smart to begin with. And now we're starting to actually say, okay, we're working together. How are we working together? What are the things we're seeing on how we're working together and how we're serving our customers really well and honoring their stories? And so we're actually, we went a little bit down the road and we're building it collectively, which is probably one of the nice benefits of still having a small enough team that we can do that. Probably still, you know, we joke sometimes that I might get more than one vote in the end, but we're all kind of crafting it together and it's working well. I think the one thing I've always been committed to from the beginning is emotionally committed employees who feel like they can A, make mistakes, and B, have a say on where the product goes to some degree so that we're in it together.
Very good. I've got a last question here, and then we'll move on to one other area. So going around the table. Oh, sorry, Arpan, did I get to you?
No.
Sorry, Arpan. Your culture, please.
Yeah, so I just honestly I just pulled stuff from past companies I've worked at that I liked. So like we, you know, obviously everyone's remote now. So on Fridays at 4:30 we do cheers. Everyone submits like anonymous. You know, they end up being backhanded compliments, most of them, but everyone submits it. We have a script that just randomizes them and sends them to their emails, and we hop on a Zoom call with a drink and have a beer. Normally it's in person with pieces of paper in a box, but that's something we do. You know, we did a get to know you thing once we reached 6 people, so everyone can learn a little bit more. And it was like a PowerPoint presentation about yourself, like you did when you're in elementary school. But we haven't done a lot of the mission and value stuff. It's on the list to do, you know, in the coming month, but we haven't got there. And just kind of letting it build itself. And one of the things that we'll do towards the end of the year that I like that we did at a bunch of other companies with a culture book. So kind of ends up being like a yearbook of your. You know, I write an investor newsletter every month, so it has that in it. The whole team signs it. You send it out to a bunch of your investors, people that have helped you along the way, and it ends up being a cool memento you can look back at every year. And we've done that at kind of basically every single company I've worked at now in the past. So it's something I'll probably carry with me here.
Right. Well, I've been a recipient of the culture book. I understand what that is. And your investor updates are videos, which are a different format than everybody else's. So
yeah, you know, I feel like investors get, you know, a crap ton of them. So we're playing around with how we can stand out. And the Twitter was a 2-minute video that someone would rather watch instead of read the bullet points of, you know, they probably get tons of.
Right. So I'll ask you, what's the one skill that you did not have when you're starting out that you'd like to have had?
You know, on mine, I've always hated numbers, really. Like it's never been something that part of it. So I went to UVic, and like when we were going to do our co-op, you know, on the island there's only banks and the government building too. So like that's what made me start my first company. Financial modeling, all that stuff is super boring to me. I have no interest in doing it. Luckily one of my co-founders does it, but I do wish you know, I do wish it's something I carried in and actually did a little more of, because, you know, when we bootstrapped the first company, I didn't have to do much of it because we were it was a little different. And now that you do need to do it, it would have been a lot more helpful fundraising. I remember someone asked for financial projections and we did not have them. And so I had to spend like Thanksgiving basically building out this like 36-month cash flow to send it out quickly because there was a deadline. But it's definitely something I've picked up and now it's easy for me to do. But, you know, you learn it in business school and then you forget it instantly as soon as you don't work with it. And then now it comes back.
Right. Okay.
That's impressive that you could crank that out in a weekend though, dude.
Yeah, it's cranked out in a day.
Yeah.
Started it on Wednesday morning and then sent it the next day.
Hope nobody checks the math.
Yeah, but no, it worked out. Like I love data. The funny part is you know, my background's growth and retention frameworks. So I love data and I love looking at the numbers. I just don't like having to be the one that produces them.
Right. So. Jessica, same question for yourself?
I mean, I'm a non-technical founder. Yeah. So there's a lot in there probably that I wish especially now when we run into problems and I can't really help other than sending cookies by George or skip gift cards. But also the psychology behind, like I remember waitressing years ago and my manager was at Earl's in Banff and he's like, yeah, you did the training, but if you've eaten at a restaurant, you know what your customers expect. And I kind of went in with that. And now that I'm doing some pretty deep study on, you know, the psychology behind habit forming products and how to create them and manage that with the ethics. I wish I would have known that when we came out with our MVP even, or paid closer attention to it.
Okay.
And the numbers,
great.
yeah, I hate the numbers too, but I don't even wish I could do them really well. I just don't like them. I mean, I like the projections, but that's it. I like looking at how much money we can make if we do the right things.
Right. Mike and Melissa, do you guys have the same thing that you'd like to have, you know, skill set like you'd have had, or do you have opposite ones or different ones?
Time management, to be honest with you, was something that I struggled with, and I guess wasn't fully aware of the challenges with that, especially when you're in your own startup and you're really trying to figure out where do you want to put the time most effectively. Sometimes I'd see some shiny objects and I'd go and chase those and realize I waste a bunch of time and I shouldn't have. And that's been something that has been a hard lesson that just repeats every so often. So it's good and has been a good kind of, especially I'm just thinking of when we were doing all the Valhalla and Angel Investor Summit details and things like that, mixed in with doing sales and trying to make sure everything else is running in the company while you're also putting on those other hats. It's so easy to get distracted. So, you know, time management is critical for helping, you know, and pulling off your day-to-day tasks.
Right. Melissa, something different?
Yeah, well, I was trying to think about how to answer that because I've been in business in one form or another since I was a teenager. So I feel like I've just been constantly like recognizing skills I don't have. And then when you're an entrepreneur, you got to learn them quick. And, you know, for 15 years, I was a solo entrepreneur in my own business. So I had to do everything. And so now, and this is the second startup that I've been a part of. So I feel like I'm at the stage where I'm honing everything. Like I know what I'm good at. I know what I suck at. Let's hire for things that I suck at and let's continue to grow in the areas, you know, that I'm good at. I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the years though is discipline and process and how key they are to a successful, sustainable business. And the early days of being like an entrepreneur founder, when everything's exciting and you're chasing all the things, like that's great for the energy at the beginning, but you really gotta, you know, just bring it together if you're gonna make this thing fly. So
I love working with Melissa too. So.
Very good.
We're a good team.
Yeah.
Jeff, what about yourself for a skill?
Yeah, I'll echo Mike's on time management, but specifically for me around creating white space in my calendar, particularly with Zoom and kind of living in the Zoom vortex. You know, I'll easily find my way into 15 Zoom meetings in a day. And then you kind of look and you have this, like, you don't have the time to think. And I think it's almost getting easier because I'm good at it. But then I realize I haven't had that 2 hours, 3 hours to think a little bit more creatively and open up some of the longer term things. And so usually that's my evenings or my other job. But I think the white space in your calendar is just, I've been finding is a skill that I'm really trying to build that out and have time to go for a walk and think something through and make fewer decisions and be involved in less things. But that's just a function of as we scale, that's natural, right? You go from being in the weeds to kind of graduating out and thinking, you know, years ahead, quarters ahead, what can really move the share price significantly versus being in everything in the early days.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
One of the Sarah Blakely comments was figure out where you come up with your best ideas and then carve out time for it. So hers was driving. So she took her 5-minute drive to drop the kids off and she took the long route. So it was 40 minutes home every day.
40 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Go on, Grant.
No, go ahead, Camille.
I was going to say driving 40 minutes in Vancouver is not really like what I would, you know, think is enjoyable, but, you know, if it works for her, then it works for her. So that's great. And, you know, Jeff, what you said about carving out white space, I feel like that is definitely a skill that was, it's something that all of us have had to learn with COVID. You know, before that, when we were in meetings face to face, you know, you'd often have a little bit of buffer time to even walk between rooms if you're in the same building, for example. But now while you're at home, you're just in front, so you can just be, you know, back to back to back. So just carving out that white space is critical for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've got a bit of surprise questions here. Definitely gonna start with you. So we're calling these the quick six, so short and sweet. Because we got less than 4 minutes here. What advice would you give to other founders?
Work as hard as you can.
Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't work as hard.
Are there any founders you're following right now?
Drew Green, CEO of Indochino. He's a co-founder and chairman of our board. Great entrepreneur, amazing mentor to me. So I track on him pretty well. But a lot of interesting things happening with Canadian entrepreneurs right now. So it's great to see Wealthsimple and others.
Excellent. Any hobbies you have?
If I go outside and go around the block, then I said, that's my activity for the day. But I gotta do this more on the hobby side.
All right. How much sleep do you get a night?
4 hours.
Oh, wow. And how much exercise do you get daily or weekly?
I go around the block every day.
That was your exercise. Okay, Jessica, same six. Any advice to what would you give to other founders?
Yeah, 1 foot in front of the other. Keep going. That's who lasts. Oh God, I can't remember the orders. So. Okay,
now I'm going to read it out to you. What would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, stop overthinking stuff and just trust your gut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any founders you follow?
Yeah, I'm really loving what's happening with Cloudflare founder Michelle Zaitlin. She's from Saskatchewan, so not too far from me, and one of the great unicorns. And Melanie Perkins of Canva. Just love kind of how that came together. I exercise, depends on the day. I either go for a walk early in the morning or I meditate, so I go back and forth between the two.
Okay.
Sleep? More than Jeff, so probably 6 hours.
6 hours, okay. Any hobbies?
Yeah, honestly, like I other than my kids and occasionally cleaning my house, Memory Keeper is like, it's all I talk about. It's all I think about. I breathe it. I'm a real loser at parties if you don't want to talk about business. It's just all I'm excited about right now.
Okay. Arpan, how much exercise? I'll start a little bit different order. How much exercise do you get daily?
I usually get, I have a dog, so walk the dog 3 times, and then I bought a Peloton once the pandemic started, so that's been a huge help. So 30 minutes at least.
Excellent. How much sleep are you getting tonight with a daughter and business with a Peloton?
I got dog, so a little different. The dog sleep, no daughter. I sleep.
Oh, sorry, dog. Sorry.
I sleep about probably 7 hours every night. I don't know how you guys do 4 hours. I need my sleep.
Wow. And what hobbies do you have? Any?
I don't know. It's summer. I like to get outdoors. I'll play basketball, but besides that, I'm usually on my computer, which my girlfriend doesn't like too much. But
right. What founders are you following, if any?
Besides our competitors, I'm not really following any founders. My mentor Andrew, he's Andrew Beatty's Beat Up CEO, their local Vancouver company. He's been a mentor to me over the last 4 years. So I guess him. Okay,
younger advice to your younger self.
Yeah, don't take school too seriously. I did the first couple of years, and don't find a hobby and get good at that instead.
And advice for other founders?
You just gotta do it. Like, don't procrastinate. Just if something needs to be done, you'll spend an hour procrastinating. Just take the 5 minutes to do it.
Okay, Melissa and Mike, you can each answer one of these questions quickly. How much exercise daily?
Mel, go for it.
Not daily.
Yeah.
But I guess average, maybe 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, I copy you, man. I go for a walk to get a cup of coffee. It's also, I think, I work through stuff. On that, I go hike a mountain every so often, a couple times in a week.
Oh, good. How much sleep a night?
8.
6 to 7, maybe. Yeah.
Wow. So you go from 4 to 8. Wow, what a range, Jeff. You're a
workaholic. I love 8 hours. Love it.
Yeah. And any founders you're following right now?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Greg Sutton from Tiny Eye is someone that I've been watching a little bit of and his work. Also Dr. Sylvia Earle, who initially inspired me to get into educating kids about the natural world. Oh, very good. Advice you'd give to your younger self? Oh, God. Even if it was only a week ago. Oh,
structure isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I like that white space that Jeff was talking about, and that kind of iterates off of the time management side. Make sure you carve out space for your own time and health and well-being. Okay. And any advice for founders? Grit. I mean, it's part of our values, but for me, it's definitely always been, don't give up, keep going, keep trying. Might not work the way you imagined, but it will eventually work.
Excellent.
I was going to say, write a plan. It doesn't have to be one of those 50 pagers, but in all my business endeavors, every time I've written it down, I've more or less done what I said I was going to do. Even if it was like 5 years later, I pulled that plan up. I was like, holy shit, I did it. So there's something about that process. I think there's a reason why it's a thing.
Yeah, writing it down helps make it realer. Realer, is that a word?
Sure.
Yeah.
Realer.
I have a quick question for Ty or T.
Yeah.
Just coming back to the host here, we'd love to post something for allow people to either join the Valhalla newsletter, or is there somewhere we can post that on the Zoom call, or where would we post that?
Yes, so you can post on the community board. That's where everyone is going to be at, and they can connect directly with you. I think that's the best place that you can post to get a wider reach. But
So
I'll
that's
also
in Wahova? Sorry, that's not on the Zoom call then.
no, the Zoom call, they're not able to see it, but if you go into your session,
Okay.
then you can also see. But I'll just quickly share the poll results. 10 out of 22 have not raised capital for their ventures before, and then half are first-time founders and half aren't.
Okay.
So yeah,
Great.
really interesting. But thank you so much, Valhalla, Private Capital, and thank you attendees for joining the session. I also want to invite you to check out other sessions, connect with others on the community board, check out sponsor booths such as Valhalla's and also the Career Fair. And so thank you so much again. I learned a lot today, and I hope everyone is enjoying VSW.
Thank you very much, everybody. Jessica, Melissa, Arpan, Jeff, and Mike, thank you for taking your time out and sharing some of your experiences and knowledge and insights and hard-won experiences of that. So I wish you guys all the best, and appreciate you guys taking time out today to do this and any of the prep work that you did as well.